One of the things I'm often asked when I start talking to a client or a prospective client is, Michael, what are the things that we need to measure and why do we need to measure them? What I usually describe is the importance of something called culture to a business. If I was to ask a chief executive or a head of HR what they thought culture was, I would probably get a different answer everywhere I went. About 3 years ago, I decided that through a research piece, we would actually define what culture looks like and what do the best companies out there do. We spent a long period of time looking at global research projects by the likes of McKinsey, Bain and Gallup to look at what are the best businesses doing and what do their cultures look like. And from that, we established 6 key criteria which we now ask and we look around and measure in our surveys. So what are those criteria? Well, let me help you understand that. The first one is all about trust. People need to feel trusted when they come to work. They don't want to feel micromanaged. They don't want to feel as though that, everything that they're doing is being looked at and being assessed, because that's a very stifling and a very unpleasant place to be. There has to be a culture driven within the organization that within reason we trust our people to do the jobs that they're being asked to do. We ask questions particularly related to that and to find out whether people are genuinely feeling that way. The second part is having a unified leadership team. Now, what we're talking about is often boards of directors, we're talking about senior management teams or SMTs, we're talking about in partnerships, we're talking about the senior partnership team. Really, what we find through research is that people need to believe that those teams and those individuals are both connected and unified. They're not fighting like cats and dogs. They have a clarity of vision. They know where they're going as an organization. And they're also very approachable. If I've got a question to ask, I can go and ask one of these people without fear of that they're going to be annoyed because they've been disturbed or they're in an ivory tower. People need to feel as though these people are human beings. So all of those things add up to a really good leadership group. And not unsurprisingly, we find that actually that is what businesses and more importantly the employees desperately want. What is the third part, or what we call the third pillar? Well, the third part is something we call customer obsession. What that means is people within the organization are focused and orientated towards external rather than internal navel-gazing and politics. Ultimately, everybody is focused on making customers happy. What is it that we do? How do we do it? And effectively, how do we delight our customers? And usually in that process, people feel much more engaged and happy to be within a business because they're not always looking at themselves and looking within. They're able to concentrate and focus on something that's external. What's the fourth element? The fourth element is personal development. The very best businesses are those that understand that everyone needs to feel as though they are growing in some way. They don't need to be making massive strides, but it's just every one of us needs to feel as though, are we getting better over the next 6 months than we were in the previous? And if everybody in the business has something to work on, something to improve, then as a business, the whole business moves forward. And so that does require, doesn't always require, but does require sometimes investment, as in training investment, all those kinds of things. It doesn't always have to be, because if the business is really investing in leadership and good management, often the manager, the direct boss of that individual, can be the person who provides the coaching needed for that person to develop. But it's a really important focus, and all the best businesses do that. Fifthly, comms, communication. The best organizations have and do this brilliantly. And what does that look like? Okay, first of all, we're looking at top down. So from the senior leadership team, how do they communicate to the business? How do they get across important things? And it's not just by email. Often it might be a town hall, it might be meeting in small groups. any number of different ways in which a senior management team can communicate, but it's using different types of communication to make sure the message is getting across. The very best businesses also have bottom up. And what does that mean? It means that anyone in an organization, from, dare I say it, a junior graduate who's just arrived in a business, can feel as though if they've got something what they feel is important to say, there is a process with which that feeling or whatever, that opinion can be processed up through the business, even to the very top. And one of the things that the very best businesses do, which is really hard to do, is side-to-side communication. We call horizontal communication, which is often between departments. So department to department, usually very hard, because often departments think and work within a particular silo, and so it's sometimes really hard to communicate effectively from department to department. The very best businesses do that. And the sixth point, and I describe this sixth point as the magic dust of a business. And what is that? It's a growth attitude. And what does that look like? It means that, similar to what I was saying about personal development, is that there is an attitude, a healthy attitude within the business which says, what are we going to be doing over the next 6 months to make our business stronger, to make our customers happier, to make our individuals and employees better? What are we doing which is innovating, which is improving, which is growing? And if that sort of is infectious across the business and with everybody within the business, you are really in a top 1 or 2% of organisations within the UK. That is really the magic dust that we look to try to help organisations develop, but we need to understand whether that exists at the moment. And so we always look, when we start to help our customers to measure these types of things, that's really a key one that we look to measure. So those are the 6 things. We call these the pillars of culture, and these are the things that we will take care of, we'll take particular focus on, and we will then sort of really determine how good is a business in those areas.